Hey, what's up, everybody? Media 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies. This is I want to say, complicated series, and I was just reading up on, the matchups and things of that nature, and it's complicated because you look at these two teams and they really match up pretty evenly, to be honest with you. Similar to how the Pelicans and the Suns match up. But the difference is you see a bit more star power leaning on the Timberwolves side than what you would think the Pelicans have at this point against the Suns. And the Memphis Grizzlies in this series, they have the answer for just about everything that Minnesota should be able to throw at them, just the same as the Suns and the Pelicans. So these are very good matchups in the first round of the Western Conference at that 1-8 and that 2-7. And what you'll also see that's similar is young wings that play defense. Guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jaden McDaniels and Jared Vanderbilt. Anthony Edwards will be highly effective in this series, I'd imagine, with his athleticism and ability to hit big shots and things of that nature. So very important. Patrick Beverley, of course, will be all through this series. And remember, it was Memphis that traded him to the Minnesota Timberwolves after trading for. I'm not sure exactly how that went, but they made a trade with the Clippers to get him there. So, this is going to be a good matchup. It's going to be a very good matchup. I'm looking at D'Angelo Russell, and his big shot ability is going to be very important as well. Because Ja Morant, for sure is going to come at him. This is where D'Angelo is going to be at a disadvantage defensively, I'd imagine. So I wouldn't even try him on Ja Morant very often. If anything, that's going to be Patrick Beverley's check pretty much for the entire series. Here's the thing, though. I'm looking at the matchups and I'm saying, okay, Karl Anthony Towns is going to have his hands full because he's going to have to deal with both Jaren Jackson and Steven Adams, two of the better defensive bigs in the game. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, you're looking at Desmond Baines, and you see really nobody that you expect is going to be able to really check him. And that's a bad thing. You look at Dylan Brooks and you say, okay, they're going to have to get good defensive efforts out of whoever they put on the floor. And a lot of times I think that's going to be like Malik Beasley to make sure that they have shooting on the floor, Anthony Edwards. They're going to have to really, really put pressure on those guys and understand that pressure is going to be applied on them just the same, because Bain and Brooks are both fantastic defensive players, just as they are on the offensive side. They both attack. They both hit threes. They both, they are both excellent and smart, and it's just they are a terror at all times. It's hard to envision how Minnesota is going to be able to freely run their offense with those two dudes constantly hounding them on the defensive end. It's a lot. They're going to have to apply pressure defensively. I look at guys like Josh Okogie. You're going to have to overachieve in this series. Naz Reid, he's going to be relied upon to play some very serious defensive plays. He's going to have to play well defensively. He's going to have to continue to do the things that he does, get a double-double with the minutes that he's given. Karl Towns, foul trouble. If I'm the coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm almost working into the equation what I'm going to have to do for Karl Towns in the event that Karl Towns is absent or in foul trouble or hurt. You got to build your system around him not being there. And the good thing about it, and I'll tell you why that is, but the good thing about it is because they have the players to do it. They have the wingy players, they have the shooters, they got the small ball lineups, they got the backup bigs. The reason why I think that is because Memphis is going to try to neutralize him. And if he's forced to be in the paint dealing with Jaren Jackson Jr., if he's forced to be dealing with Ja Morant constantly driving into the paint, trying to draw fouls, and those whistles are coming. Brooks driving at him, I just envision him being in foul trouble a lot of the time in this series. It's just Memphis is going to do that. They have players that draw fouls, and he's such a big target. I know he likes to hover around the perimeter, and that's very dangerous for the Memphis Grizzlies. I will admit, between him, Beasley, who else is on that team that can shoot? D'Angelo Russell. They are huge three-point shooting, streaky but consistent three-point shooters. So I'm definitely looking at those players in particular. If they can keep that floor spacing free for Anthony Edwards to drive, for Vanderbilt and guys like that to get in transition, McDaniels to get in transition, they're going to have some good sequences in the series. But Memphis is so good, man. That's the only thing about Memphis. You got to understand. They have answers for everything. I think about a guy like John Conchar. I don't even know if I'm saying his name correctly, but I read up he had 17 rebounds in a game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's one of their players off of the bench. Like, you think about guys like Xavier Tillman, who I know can play big but doesn't get the minutes. Zaire Williams, who's yet another forward that they're going to throw at people like Anthony Edwards. And it's just going to be a nightmare dealing with Memphis defensively, who have not only good defensive players individually, but play good team defense as well. And that's something that the Minnesota Timberwolves do not do. They do not. They have holes in their defense in certain key areas. It just is what it is. They have defensive players, but they also have some very key non-defensive players, and that is why I do believe they're not going to win this series. In fact, I think it could potentially be a sweep, but a lot of that is going to be determined by the overall will of that big three, in Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, and Big Cat. And it leans on them three at the end of the day. Who are they? When I spoke about the Minnesota Timberwolves at the beginning of the season, I said they're going to have an opportunity to make the playoffs, and they're going to have an opportunity to define who they are. The Memphis Grizzlies have obviously done that, but they have to do so in the playoffs, and this is their opportunity. Are you going to play spoiler? I don't see why, if I'm in the Minnesota locker room, I don't believe I'm any more as worthy as they are to be here. You're pretty much two young teams. You both haven't done anything in the playoffs. You both have star-level players that should make all-star teams every year. You both have players who can be feisty and be defensive on each side. And you both have proud franchises that want to prove that they can win. Minnesota, who's been in the dumps for a very long time, but have had players like Kevin Garnett come through here and give this place a certain level of pride. And I feel like, the Memphis Grizzlies, of course, have the grit and grind era. Coupled with what they got going on right now, which is big time with Ja Morant. So, both of these teams are playing for something. Spirited guys on both sides. You got to watch for the referees blowing their whistles, obviously. Patrick Beverly, he's going to be a disruptor. He's going to act up. He's going to get under people's skin. He's going to pick a fight. He's going to do whatever he has to do to give the Minnesota Timberwolves an advantage. And Ja Morant is going to have to be prepared for that. Dylan Brooks is going to have to be prepared for that. Desmond Bain is going to have to be prepared for that. Those are the players I'm looking at. Anybody on that team that is spirited and passionate about winning is going to have to understand that Patrick Beverly is going to use that against you. He's going to tap into that emotion. He's going to play tough defense. He's going to flop all over the place like a fish, and he's going to make you mad. But if you hold your head and you stay home on it, you realize he's immortal. He's not an amazing player. He can be amazing on the defensive end, but what he's best at is getting under your skin. And discipline is going to win this series for the Memphis Grizzlies. They're gonna have to keep their heads. They're gonna have to be ready for that. And Valanciunas, that's who's very important as well in this series. Excuse me, not Valanciunas. I'm thinking about Steven Adams. I apologize. I just got it mixed up. He used to play for this team. But I'm thinking about Steven Adams because Steven Adams is going to be somebody who anchors the defense on the inside for Memphis, and he's going to be able to keep Jaren Jackson from having to check Karl Anthony Towns 100% of the time. Jaren Jackson is much better when he can just play on the weak side because it gives him more juice on the offensive end to do the things that you want him to do there as well. Fantastic rebounder on both ends. Great runner of the floor and things of that nature. He's only getting better. So, Jaren Jackson is going to need Steven Adams to play about as reliably and as consistently staying out of foul trouble and things of that nature as humanly possible. I'm looking at the fouls. Teams that stay disciplined in this series are going to win it. Making sure that you do not foul unnecessarily, taking possessions seriously, all that good stuff as well. So, free throws, all of that matter. At the end of the day, you basically have to play flawless against Memphis if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves. Turnovers, not going to work. Leaving shooters open, not going to work. Over dribbling, stuff like that, not going to work. If a guy's cold, coach is going to have to sit him, all of that stuff. Very much in play in regards to this series. Timeouts, being smart, not making bad decisions. Because at the end of the day, Memphis leaves you very little room for those mistakes. Anything you do wrong, they're headed the other way. Open shot, they're hitting it. Driving to the paint, they're probably finishing. They're going to get their whistles, etc. Ja sits down, they're just as good. You just don't get any room for mistakes. So Minnesota is going to have to play perfect. They're going to need Anthony Edwards to step into who he's going to be tomorrow. I don't see why he can't do that. The type of confidence that he has and the type of skills that he already appears to show, as long as he continues to attack, drive into the paint with a purpose, not out of control, hit his shots, be willing to pass and pass up shots if he doesn't have it flowing. Those type of things, play with fluidity. If that happens, this series can be extended. There's no reason why the matchups can't fall in place for a team like Minnesota to be able to steal a game here and there. Particularly, I would be impressed if the Minnesota is able to steal a game on the road in this series. Not to say that that's an easy thing to do, but when you talk about a team that's trying to make a name for themselves and build upon who it is that they believe themselves to be tomorrow, or you know what I mean? That should be something they should really be shooting for in this series. Memphis is going to have a home court advantage like none other. They've had an emotional year. They've been winning. And they expect to get to the finals and win a championship. But they're going to have to get past a team that matches up well against them in order to do that. And I feel that if in order to do that, it's going to be about rebounding. And it's going to be about cutting back on mistakes. Simple as that. So, that's what I got, man. The game starts. Game 1 starts up in about an hour or so. Yeah, 12:30 Pacific. And I'm going to be checking that out. Can't wait to see these two teams battle it out. Again, shooting is important. 3-point shooters, you can't leave open shooters on either side. They're lethal. And with that being said, don't fall in love with the three. If you're Minnesota especially. When you start seeing them stroking threes, Baines is a streaky guy. He can light a couple of them up in a row. Once you start getting into the I want to answer them with threes game, you're going to lose. In situations like that, you either want to call timeouts or slow the pace down or something. Run something that you know is going to work. Play to your strength or whatever. I think a lot of times teams get caught up in that back and forth. It's a guy like D'Angelo Russell, a guy like Malik Beasley, Desmond Bain, some of these guys, they're going to get caught up in the shooting. They could get caught up in that shooting back and forth thing. That doesn't work. It does not work. It's best to try to control the game from the clock perspective at that point. So that's my opinion. Whoever plays smarter should win. So that's what I got, man. I expect it to be the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis is going to do away with this team pretty early, man. I'm not going to lie. I expect us to go about 5 games. 5 games at the most. Maybe even a sweep, but I'm just going to say 5 out of respect for the matchups. They look pretty good, man. Karl Towns is going to have to prove me wrong. I'm not a believer in terms of him stepping up and being an alpha and showing Jaren Jackson and Steven Adams that he ain't the one. Nah, he's going to have to prove he's that guy. Anthony Edwards, I just think it's a couple years early, maybe a year or two early. I think Ja is ready. And I think it's going to be very difficult to overcome a guy who's just more advanced at this point. But I think Anthony will be there very soon. And as far as D'Angelo Russell, that's just a tough matchup. You know, he's a great player, but he lacks in athleticism. He lacks in defense sometimes, on the defensive end sometimes. Even though he has defensive intangibles, ultimately he just can't move with some of these super athletic dudes. But he's going to be able to put pressure on them on the defensive end, being crafty and hitting 3-point shots as he does, and teardrops and things of that nature. Get to the line, get them in foul trouble, outsmart them. That's where he can win. But in terms of like blow-bys and stuff like that, you just have to lean on your Patrick Beverleys. You have to lean on your Vanderbilts. That's where your money's at. Okay, keep those defenders on the floor. And that's your best bet. Memphis is going to come at you. They're going to average about 120 points a game in this series. So scoring is ever so important. Every possession matters. That's what I got to say, man. BDF 44. Everyone enjoy this series. And I'm out.